Hey guys, welcome back to Susie on the Farm. And if you're new here, thank you so much for joining. We're going to jump right into the thrift store makeovers today. So I got a couple of these large embroidery hoops, and I have some thrifted fabric. This is just a plain cotton fabric, but I absolutely love the color of it. And I am using the Saint Germain transfer book. I had to go through it a little while to try to figure out what I wanted to use, what would fit best. I also have two of these and I want to make them a set, not identical, but close to identical. I finally settled on one, but I still had to cut it apart to make it fit like I want it. This transfer is so full of all these beautiful botanicals, and the colors are so vibrant and pretty in them. It was really hard to decide which one I wanted to put in these embroidery hoops. I didn't want to completely cover it, but I definitely wanted there to be a larger flower arrangement in it. Now, I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that transfers onto fabric is easy. It's not. I rubbed a really long time and I rubbed really hard, and you'll see here in just a minute when I turn this fabric over, and you can see how hard that I had to work to get this transfer on here. But the end result is absolutely beautiful, and it is not going anywhere. This is also home decor, so I'm not worried about sealing it. I did iron this fabric first, but as you can see, I have wrinkled it more there trying to get this transfer on. When I put it in the embroidery hoop, it should pull those wrinkles out. So now that I've got the whole transfer on, the only thing left to do really is to put it in the embroidery hoop and cut off the edges. I did put a sawtooth hanger on the back of these, and I did do two almost identical. There was a little bit of wrinkle still left in the one, but other than that, I can take it back out and try to get those wrinkles out. But I think I can just tighten up the frame a little bit more, and it's going to look gorgeous. I've sold so many of these large embroidery hoop art pieces over the years, and I know that these two are going to sell as well. They turned out beautiful. I did end up tying a rag bow on the top, and I just love these colors. So before I left last night, I molded this rooster really quick with some air dry clay, and then I laid him on this quart-sized mason jar to dry. Don't worry, I'll show you how to make this casting a little later on in the video if you need to know. But now I am this one's dried overnight, and it dried into the shape of the mason jar because I left it laying on there. Now I'm just using some Tite Bond glue. This is my absolute favorite glue. It has never failed me. Everything that I've ever glued on there, as far as I know, is still stuck. So I did get a little bit of excess glue seeping out of the edges. So before that dries, I'm going to take a baby wipe and wipe it up, and then I'm going to put some tape on here just to make sure he stays in place while he's drying. Once the glue has dried for a couple hours, I can come back and paint it. And to do that, I'm using DIY clay-based paint in the color Farm Fresh. I just love this color. I think it goes great with any season, spring, summer, winter, fall. And it's just an all year round perfect color. I did do 2 coats, letting it dry in between coats, and once it was dry, for the final step on this, I'm just going to use some white wax on the rooster and the entire thing. These IOD molds, this is the Chanticleer mold from the new release. It has 2 roosters and a lot of other things with it, a lot of other little embellishments, and they're just precious. But these molds have so much detail, and if you don't do something to highlight them, like wax or dry brushing, they kind of get lost, and they're just too beautiful for that. So I used white wax all over the entire thing, and I'm kind of particular with my wax. I don't like for there to be any, big clumps of it in places, so I use a little detail brush to make sure I get all those clumps out, and then wipe it back as I go until I get it just like it should be. I tied a little homespun fabric around the top, and that's all there is to this one. I love this mold. I could do so many things with it. I can't wait to use it more. So for our next project, I did the same thing with the Leonidas mold. I made him right before I left last night, and he dried on this is a galvanized metal wall hanging basket type thing. And I'm so over the galvanized metal, but mostly everyone is, so I find it everywhere in all the thrift stores. So this one, I'm simply going to glue him on using the Titebond glue again. I took him outside and I spray painted it with a black matte spray paint. I just wanted to give it a good base coat, and now I'm coming back with Fusion Metallics in the copper color. You could also use Pennies from Heaven from DIY for this. I had this copper metallic already open. I don't like to open something else when I already have a jar open of one, but both of them work absolutely amazing. And look at all the details in that lion. Now these are just some transfer scraps I had left, I think from the traditional pots transfer, and I thought that this little hanging pouch basket thing needed just a little bit more. So before I did anything else, I transferred these little transfers onto it. There was a 1888 year that looks really cool on the bottom, and then I also decided to put one on the top, even though if you put greenery in it, it will not show as much, but I felt like this just finished it off perfect, and I'm on a mission to use all of my transfer scraps. This hoard is getting out of control. After I got all the transfers on, I really wanted to richen it up a little bit, so I used some of the aging wax, and I went over the entire thing, making sure to get in all those details. And when I came back to wipe the excess back off, a lot of the details stayed inside of Leo's details, or a lot of the wax stayed down in those details and really brought out all his handsome features. Before I forget, I just got a restock in of all the new summer IOD release. Right now, I have everything in stock. If you missed out on something before, head on over to susieonthefarm.com, where you'll find all the IOD, all of the fusion paint, DIY paint, and many more crafting products. This next project is actually the easiest and my favorite. So I thrifted this little pitcher basket, and it had this mold on it. Looking back, I kind of wish I had just white waxed over that, because it has the strawberries and the fruit, which are trending, but instead I pulled it off. And when I did that, I kind of messed up the basket. So how do we fix that? With a larger mold and some IOD clay. This is the Sparrow's Nest mold. This is not from this newest release, but the one before. And I just pressed first of all, I dusted it with cornstarch, and then I pressed the IOD air dry clay down into the mold, cleaned up all the edges, and then just flipped it out and let gravity pull it out. And now I am going to, while it's still wet, I'm going to let it dry onto the basket, and I'm going to come back once the mold has dried in place, and before I glue it on, I'm not painting it or anything. The clay is white. I am using some aging wax, and I'm just putting it on. Now this clay is very porous, so I knew I didn't seal it first. I knew that it would really darken it up, which is exactly what I wanted. I want you to see all those branches and everything that the little birds work so hard to make their nest absolutely perfect. So I went around and I aged the entire thing, and I wiped it back with a baby wipe so it would really get white on those eggs. Now to fix the basket, I am really going to glue it well around that hole so you will not even know it's there. And any of the excess glue, I also put on the back of the mold, just around the edges. There's no point in putting glue in the center there because that's going to show on the back of the basket. And that's it. I wiped off the excess glue. I let it dry. And look how sweet this looks. I just love that bird's nest. For my next project, I'm going to use resin. I'm using not the 10-minute fast drying. This is what needs to dry overnight or cure overnight, but the concept is the same. You mix A and B together, and for this one you have to stir it really well. I usually set a 3-minute timer and really stir it for a good 3 minutes. Once you've stirred it up well and mixed it, then you want to slowly pour it into your mold. I'm using the same sparrow's nest mold, except this time I'm going to cast the other nest and a couple of birds. We're going to do another basket with these. I left these overnight to cure, and the next morning they are ready to pop out of the mold. Now this resin does dry clear, not white like the other, but it is not quite fully cured yet, but really tough. And sometimes you might have some little excess, and this is when you can pull them off very easily. These birds are so pretty. So this is just a plain ordinary basket you see all the time. I've had it a long time, so I thought, let's dress it up. Let's see what we can do with it. I had a vision to put the nest and the bird on the branch inside the basket, and then I really wanted to put the flying sparrow up top, but I wasn't sure which side. So I'm just deciding here how to do that. Before I glue them on, I am going to go ahead and paint them white because I want to do the same concept that I just did with the other nest because it turned out so good and I thought it looked so great. So I gave them one coat of, I think that was vintage linen. I let it dry, and now I'm coming back with the aging wax the same way so I can really bring out all those branches and details in the nest and the bird. Wiping them back with a baby wipe to bring a lot of that white color back. And then all that is left to do is glue them on. For this, I did use hot glue, especially for the bird up top. Don't know how well it's going to hold, but for now it is holding really great and it's super cute. Like I said, Galvanized is everywhere in all the thrift stores. And as soon as I saw these 3 French flower buckets, I immediately knew that I wanted to put the paint inlay florography on them. But first I had to pick out paint colors, and I decided to do 3 different colors. So I painted one in crinoline. I painted one in Farm Fresh. I used that one earlier in this video, and I love it. And my favorite DIY color, one of the very first ones I used, Skeleton Key for the other one. I thought they were all year-round colors that could stay out. So I did one coat, let it dry completely, and now I'm coming back with the second coat. And the second coat, while it's wet, is when you want to put your paint inlay on. I like to put a pretty good, thick, even coat, and then I missed my paint inlay, and I missed the entire paint side of the paint inlay, lay it where I want it on my project. I did realize here that I did not paint enough of one side, so I had to add a little bit more paint before I laid the inlay into it because it will not stick to dry paint. It has to be wet paint. And then I just smoothed it all out with my finger, making sure to make good contact all the way around the entire thing. And lastly, I wet it once again, and I used a paper towel to dab off any of the excess and then put it to the side and let it dry. I'm going to speed through these other two, but I'm doing the exact same thing, adding the second coat of paint, misting my paint inlay, laying it in the wet paint, smoothing it out with my fingers, and then wetting it again to activate that paint on the back of it. And then I dab off the excess paint, putting them aside to let all them dry. Now for the fun part, removing these once they are all dry. To remove them, you want to use your mister bottle again and re-wet the entire thing. You do got to be careful when you're misting the DIY paint, because especially if you don't want to distress it, I am going to end up distressing these in the ends. I wasn't too worried about it. And then you just let it sit for a minute and you pull back the backing and your image has transferred into your wet paint. We need to let them dry, and I'm just going to let you guys see the reveal and pulling off all of these inlays. Like I said, I let these dry, and to seal them, I did distress them, and I waited overnight to seal them, and I used some clear wax, but you can seal them right away. You just need to use a very light hand with like liquid patina or something like this. But if you want to use wax, you definitely need to let them cure for a while, because the rubbing will smear the paint if not. Thank y'all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed today's transformations. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share my video out. And I'll see you guys next week.